Hey, it's Michaela Gordon. Welcome to So Funny It Hurts, where we interview your favorite funny people and explore the trauma that makes them that way. I'm so excited this week for our guest. I found him online. I went on to watch his amazing special, Sweatpants and Perpetuity, and I also found out how easy it really can be to potty train your child. It's just with poo-poo cookies. Please welcome Noah Gardenswartz to the show.
Thank you for having
Hi,
me.
Noah.
Hi.
A fellow Jew. Good to see you.
Pleasure to see you.
The tribe is standing together strong.
Here we are.
Noah, you are so funny to me. First of all, I just realized that you are from, you live in Vegas.
I do. My wife and I moved here in August, so it's been about 5 months.
Oh, it's new.
Yeah, very new.
Where'd you move from?
We moved from LA, but I want to preface this by saying I was born and raised in Denver. Then I was in Atlanta for 12 years, started comedy in Atlanta. Then I was in New York for 10 years, and then LA for 2. Because I know there's a big stigma, like in Vegas now, if you say you moved from Cali, they think you're the one ruining the housing market and all that.
Yeah, it's your fault.
I'm not like a Cali guy. I was in LA for 2 years when we moved here, but I've been all over. Denver to Atlanta to New York to LA to Vegas.
The way that you made sure to open with, I'm not a Cali guy.
I love Cali. I'm not like hating on Cali either, but it's like I've seen so many eyes roll when people are like, oh, where'd you move from? And I say LA, I can already see like people getting upset. So.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm from here. I was born and raised, and then I lived in LA for 15 years, and we just moved back. And I'm like, if you were in LA, you had to move to Vegas.
True.
It's crazy in LA right now.
That's why we came.
And it's so expensive. And being from here, I give you the props that you're allowed to live here and be here.
Thank you.
And I have a key to the city, and I really do. So
I appreciate
only
it.
when I say rolls.
Honestly, Vegas has been great. Everyone's been great, and we're very happy here so far.
Good, good. How is it? You've got 2 beautiful babies.
Thank you.
How's Vegas with 2 kids?
It's amazing. Like, my wife and I joke that it's like the suburbs of Vegas are overcompensating for being Vegas. It's like unless you're on the Strip, everywhere outside of Vegas goes out of their way to make it like pristine and family friendly and peaceful. It's so much calmer and more relaxing and like outdoorsy than people think, and it's been great. The kids are happy, we're happy. Very glad with the move so far.
That's nice. Have you seen the new Durango resort that just opened?
No.
They made it beautiful.
Okay.
But speaking of overcompensating for like the suburban area, I feel like they also are getting their good hand on like having something fun to do where you don't have to go on the Strip. It's like right there in your backyard, but also super family friendly everywhere else.
Well, it's funny because I can't I'm sure we'll get into the trauma of it all.
We will.
No, my mom was a huge gambler. And so like I grew up in Denver, but our family trips would be Vegas. And this is like the mid 90s when Vegas was just figuring out how to let like gambling parents go have their adult fun and give the kids something to do. So I was like very much an arcade kid of the 90s in Vegas while my mom was away gambling. So yeah. But it's funny how like that was Vegas's version of family friendly back then, where it's just like drop them off at Circus with a roll of quarters for the day. And now there's actual things. There's like museums and things that kids can do. But
did you go to Wet n Wild?
No.
Sorry.
No. So maybe I didn't do it right.
Sorry, Noah. You didn't do it right. And then they quickly blew it up so that there was none of that either. It was this incredible water park that if you're from Vegas or if you came enough times, you would go to this water park. It was the only thing for kids to do in 120 fucking degree weather.
Well, that's probably why I did.
And it was so much fun. But it's true. There was Circus. There was, what was it? Grand Slam Canyon.
I mean, I'm not joking when I tell you like it was just circus. It was just like every day get dropped off with my sisters at like 10 a.m. with a $10 roll of quarters and be like, we'll be back at 3.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's just like go do your thing. Here's circus. Go have fun. We'll be back.
Okay, so you know the Vegas game.
Yeah,
you know the routine.
I get it.
You're not new to this.
No.
Okay, so great. So you're here with your wife, who's also a comedian. I want to have her on the show too.
Yeah, Esther Steinberg, very fun.
Esther!
Check her out. Noah Gardenswartz and Esther Steinberg.
Wow!
Yeah, really doing it.
Wait, that's so great. So did you guys meet in the comedy club?
We met on a podcast.
Tell me.
Okay, so we actually have the same manager. And I knew of her from afar as I was like, oh, that's a very attractive Jewish woman who does comedy. I'm intrigued. But I lived in New York, she lived in LA, and it just so happened that like she was headlining a club in Rochester, New York, and came in a few days early. And we have two friends, Yamanika Saunders and Chloe Hilliard, who used to have a podcast together, and they would each be responsible for bringing one guest. And so Yamanika asked Esther and Chloe asked me, and like as luck would have it, they brought us on the same day. And I knew of her, knew we had a manager in common. I was a little flirtatious on the podcast, nothing creepy, just like kind of putting feelers out there, and we hit it off that week. And 7 years later, we're married with 2 kids.
Oh my God. I love that. That's how my fiance and I, we met at a gig. She was DJing. They brought my band in to play. It was like 30-minute DJ, 30-minute live band.
Yeah.
And I saw her and I was creepy and very embarrassing. And I was like whipping my weave and shit around. I was like, what's
Good for
up?
you. Go for
Thank
it.
you.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, she had a boyfriend on the podcast, so like I was
okay.
smooth enough. I was smooth enough to steal her, but it wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't just like. Yeah, I wasn't.
All
a
the
shithead,
betting
but
at
it was-
Circus Circus lets you get a good hand
That's
on
right.
Esther.
Exactly.
I love
I knew
it.
how to wager.
That's amazing. So now you have little babies.
We do, yeah.
And it has, because I feel like Sweatpants in Perpetuity, which is your special,
Yeah.
talks a lot about family life, your kids. It's really funny. You're like a very family-oriented comedian, would you say?
Yeah, but it's fun. So my comedy is very much just like an honest self-reflection on where I am in my life. So I have 4 albums and or specials. I put out 4 different hours. And Sweatpants in Perpetuity is the 4th one. If you listen from like my first album till now, the whole first album was just about like fucking drugs. It's,
Oh my
it's
God.
like single, younger in New York City, just all I did was fucking smoke weed. And it's like very much about that. And then the second album is like when I got a girlfriend and started dating. And then the third album was as a new parent with only 1 kid. And so it's like, if you listen from my first album to the 4th, you can literally just watch the trajectory of my life become more and more family oriented and slightly boring, but also fun in a different way.
Yeah, but that's amazing. And like, what a cool thing to have documented, you know, and through like a comedic perspective, like you watched yourself sort of grow up through your albums and specials. I mean, that's the beauty of comedy, I think.
Yeah, I think anyone who is a fan that has followed from the beginning has like been on board with the journey and likes to see where I ended up versus where they first met me. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty cool, yeah.
All right, so did you start, so you're from Denver.
Yeah, I started comedy in Atlanta though.
You started in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So how'd that go down? Like, let's talk very beginning, because I often feel like comedians are just naturally very funny. Like, you just know if you're funny or not.
I grew up in a funny household. I grew up in a house where like we were allowed to watch rated R movies. We were allowed to curse. Not like I wasn't cursing at my parents or being disrespectful, but it's like I did not have a censored, sheltered childhood at all. And like oddly enough, grew up in a religious Jewish household. So like we were celebrating Shabbat. I had a kosher home. I went to Jewish day school. So it was like very Judaically rule oriented. But as far as just secular life, it was kind of like I was smoking weed with my parents towards the end of high school.
No way.
Yeah. So it was like a weird upbringing of like a lot of structure, but also very free and open. But say all that to say, like, I always grew up loving stand-up and appreciating humor. Both of my parents are funny. My sisters have a good sense of humor. But I never in a million years wanted to be a stand-up or thought I would be a stand-up. I was always a writer. It's just something that came naturally to me. I was always experimenting with different forms of creative writing, everything from short stories and poems to raps and then eventually jokes. But my passion was basketball. I grew up, all I cared about was basketball. I went to Emory University.
But also, like, you're a 6'4" Jewish man. Like, let's talk. Like, let's explain that, because my family,
I can't explain
none
it.
of us have height. My dad is barely 5'8".
I'm significantly taller than the rest of my family. So, like,
Are you the tallest one?
yeah, of
How
course.
tall are your parents?
My mom was 5'4" and my dad is 5'11". So like I don't have a short family, but I don't.
Yeah, but coming out 6'4",
I have no business
you can
being
walking out of
6'4".
your 5'4" mother.
I have no business being as tall as I am.
I love it.
But yeah, so like basketball was my passion, and then I went to college, Division III. So like, I mean, I played a little bit of college ball, but not at like the highest levels.
Yeah,
then,
but that's good.
yeah, I got hurt my freshman year, and all of a sudden, this thing I had like dedicated my life to and devoted all my energy to, I just stopped, and then that's when like creative writing came back into my life. And then I don't know how quickly you want to jump into the trauma, but like my mom got diagnosed with cancer my junior year of college. And I had a broken leg from basketball. I had to go home for 6 months. Like I was on medical withdrawal while she got diagnosed with cancer, and she was diagnosed and told she only had 6 months to live. And so in that time is when I started writing. Like that was the beginning of me thinking maybe I'll give comedy a try.
So let me just break it down. You're
I know
in
that was a lot
college.
to unpack,
It wasn't a
so-
lot. It's not a lot to unpack. And first of all, thank you so much for sharing that too, because that's like a lot and it's heavy. But I always find, like I say, and the whole reason I created this podcast, like I was in the worst situation of my life last year at the end of December. And I just like, I was about to turn 35 and everything was just crumbling while simultaneously getting engaged. We had to move, like life was just really fucking lifing.
Life is unrelenting and it doesn't give a fuck. Yeah.
That's it. And I did a show and someone was like, God, like you really are funny even when you're like fucking depressed. And I was like, well, it's the trauma.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, that's the podcast. Because it feels like the more fucked up things are, the more I just rely on comedy to like get myself through it.
It's interesting though. I'm like always a little hesitant to share the idea of like I started comedy right around the time I thought my mom was gonna die, because people make this one-to-one connection of like, oh, you must have been in such a dark place that comedy was the only thing that could bring you out, or you know, and the truth is the only reason the two are related is because I had always fiddled with like the idea of I don't want to be a stand-up comedian, but maybe someone will hire me to write jokes, or you know, but it was just kind of like, these are stupid thoughts, were they ever going to work? And it was just the concept of my mom being told she had 6 months to live that gave me kind of this like life is too short idea, where it was like, just try the comedy. So it wasn't that suddenly I was like so depressed and worried about my mom that I was like, oh, I have to write a joke, otherwise I'll kill myself. You know, it was like,
well, if you were depressed, get out. What's the point of being here, Noah? You're either sad and depressed or not.
Sorry. but so it literally was like, the connection was just like, I could be dead in 6 months too. Why not try it? I've always like found stand-up to be intriguing. I've got these jokes written down that I wrote down while I was at home nursing a broken leg away from school for a semester. Let's just see what happens.
That's crazy. So you go to school for basketball, you injure your leg, simultaneously your mom is diagnosed, 6 months left to live.
Yeah, I mean, not to get injured my shoulder, that's when I stopped playing, and then 2 years later just playing intramural. It was a basketball injury again, but not for the university. I was just playing
Your
ball.
body was just naturally breaking down.
Yeah, my body was just like, stop fucking playing basketball. But
your body was like, enough.
But yeah, so I broke my leg, and it was bad enough I had to have like a big surgery, and I wasn't going to be able to walk around campus, so I took a medical withdrawal for 6 months.
Got it.
Second semester of my junior year, I went back to Denver to have the surgery and just like heal up. And in that time, one morning, as I'm sitting there with a broken leg, my mom comes in to deliver the news that she just got diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma.
Was your family close growing up?
Yes. I mean, I was very close with my parents. I've gotten very close with my sisters, but like the family had a good, my parents were screamers. My parents fought a lot with each other, but they also had a good time with each other. Like my parents, it wasn't a horrible marriage. It wasn't a wonderful marriage. I think they probably weren't necessarily right for each other, but raised three great kids, and like we had a good family unit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So you would come to Vegas with your parents.
Yeah.
I love this. And then your mother was a gambling addict, you said.
Yeah.
What does that
gambler.
look like? Like she would just, was it like something that ended up affecting the house, or she just was like on the side?
It didn't affect the house in terms of like my mom wasn't a gambling addict in terms of like, oh shit, we just lost the mortgage, mom,
Right.
you know, but my dad is an accountant, so he's the opposite of a gambler. It's like he's all about financial stability. So like there definitely was.
Your mother's Joe
friction.
Pesci and your father's Robert De Niro in Casino.
Exactly.
Just fucking shit up.
That's exactly. Like, couldn't have said it better. So yeah, there was definitely like friction over money issues in the marriage in general, which led to fights. But like gambling, what it looked like is we would come to Vegas, and it was literally like we would see my mom for a family breakfast. We'd be like, okay, we're all gonna meet at the food court or at this little diner at 9 a.m. And then maybe we'll see mom again at dinner. And if she came to breakfast the next morning, she'd be exhausted because she was up till 4 or 5 in the morning playing craps. Like when my mom came to Vegas for 3 or 4 days, she was at the craps table the whole time.
Yeah. So what's crazy is as you go into your stand-up, and I want to go back to your mother, but you talk about, and something I found interesting knowing that you live in Vegas too, is you talk about being a gambling addict in a reel that went viral.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing reel, and it's so funny.
Thank you.
But it's interesting that you now live in Vegas.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that was something that you got, or you feel like...
Oh, yeah, I'm a compulsive gambler. I have no problem admitting that. I got it from both sides of my family. So my mom was a compulsive gambler, and I definitely got that from her. My father, part of the reason he doesn't gamble and part of the reason his family was like so conservative with money is his grandfather was a compulsive gambler who got divorced from his wife in the 30s when people did not get divorced over gambling trouble. So it's
Damn.
like I have it on both sides of my bloodline. I definitely caught the bug, and my sister also is a gambler. She lived in Vegas. She went to UNLV for hotel and restaurant management.
Nice.
And like thought about dropping out to be a professional poker player, and ended up leaving Vegas and going back to Denver because she could like see the writing on the wall of like, this is beginning to become a bit too much. So there's definitely people in my family that like legitimately struggle with it. I have not played craps once since I moved to Vegas.
Good for you.
Because I feel like if I start going to the craps table, I'm going to be at the craps table, and I don't want that to happen. So
Listen.
I'm like, I'm dipping into the sports betting, which is fine because I'm just a huge sports fan, and it's like, it's nothing out of control. I've also been to Gamblers Anonymous, so I've like learned things about myself and my own limits, and I can feel when it's becoming a problem when it's not. And so far, betting on sports has been fine because it's just $20 here and there to have a vested interest in the game. But like, I have been very conscientious about not going to the craps table since I moved here, so I don't open that Pandora's box.
Yeah. I have addiction strong in my family, and I feel like it's just anything. Like it was drinking, it was drugs, it could be gambling, but we just were poor, so we didn't get to go experience that. But I remember even on my 21st birthday, I was like, I put $40 down, I lost it, and I was like, bye, that's it, and I've never played again.
Well, I was going to say, good for you. The best thing that can happen is you lose a little bit quickly and are just like, fuck this. Why do people do that?
But it's only because I'm afraid, like knowing that there's addiction so deep in my family, I like don't even fuck with it because I'm just like, I don't want to get into it, and then it's like a mess. Because listen, I think it's very tempting, which is how I see people come to Vegas all the time losing their asses.
Of course.
You win a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can do this. I can make this happen.
Well,
and
it's
then,
like, it's when you have to start putting the ATM card in your car parked 2 miles away. So like, you know that if you hit your limit, it's going to be a 2-mile walk to go get your ATM card, another 2-mile walk back. And you feel that 4 miles of shame to really think about, like, that's when, okay, this is a problem. Maybe I need to stop.
Yeah. Did it get like that for you?
Yeah, it's been like that.
Yeah, you had to walk a couple miles to that car?
I've done, that's a different walk of shame. That's a gambler's walk of shame.
Well, you got a handle on it, which is great.
Yeah.
So that was your experience with Vegas coming, and then we skip now to college. Is your mother still with us?
No.
Did she end up passing that soon?
She didn't. No. So that was the other thing is she was given 6 months to live, and then she ended up living for 3 years. But in that time, it was a constant roller coaster of like, we were always a month away from her potential passing with like, then it would be in remission or she'd go on chemo and then it would come back. So like, we knew it was a matter of time. It was never, she was diagnosed with stage 4. So it was never going to be like, hey, maybe she'll beat this and live a long life. It was just like, how good of a quality of life can she have for as long as she can have it? And that was ultimately around 3.5 years. Yeah.
Are you the youngest?
I am.
And you have
Baby and the only
two
boy.
sisters?
Yeah.
And so did they like mom up pretty fast with you?
I'm
an older sister, so that's why I asked.
I mean, I was 24 when she passed, so it's like I wasn't a kid. You know,
That's young, though.
Yeah, it's definitely young to lose your mother, but it's old enough to like not need my sisters to be my mom. I was an adult. I was a man.
I'm just coming from the older sister's perspective. No. I'm like, you always need your sisters.
No. I think they would tell you they mommed up.
I know, because my brother's a whole ass 32 years old, 2 kids, and I'm like, what do you need, Sam?
Right.
I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, yes, in their own ways, very in line with the personalities they have. They definitely mommed up, attempted to mom up, still check in, still see me as little baby brother. But you know, like I'm a 40-year-old man with 2 kids now. I'm a man.
Yeah, you got Esther.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever.
I have a third more annoying Jewish woman in my class.
So, when your mother passed, and I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay. I appreciate that, but blanket statements like I love my mother dearly. It was sad when she passed. I am totally fine with it. It's been 15 going on 16 years. It's not something that pains me to talk about.
No, of course. But I do. I just am sorry because I feel I don't have a relationship with my mom.
Okay.
And I feel like it's such an important relationship.
Definitely.
And so I do. I just, you know.
I do regret that she's not here to see that I made like a good career out of comedy because she was so supportive.
Was she?
She died a little bit after I was like an open mic comedian. So she saw me perform once or twice and enough to know that like I was good at it and enough to be excited for me. And she was a bit of a performer herself. So like she loved that I was doing stand-up. She wasn't like the Jewish mother that was nagging me to go to law school or something. She was like very much on board with me chasing my dreams, but she never got to see me have any kind of success with it. So like sometimes when things go well or when I've had good things happen in my career, I definitely think back and wish or think about how proud my mom would be to like see it now. But
Yeah. So you start doing stand-up around the time the diagnosis happens.
Yeah.
Now she's passed and you're doing your open mics. You're doing your thing.
So when she passed, I actually took 2 years off of stand-up. So she got diagnosed. I started doing stand-up for about I was like a year and a half, 2 years in. Open micing, occasionally maybe doing a host spot at a club, but for the most part, just an open micer in Atlanta scene. She passed. 24 years old, very confused about life, don't necessarily know what I want to do. I was a sociology major in college, so it's not like I had a career path with my degree. I went because I cared about basketball. So I did Teach for America for a year. I was a 4th grade teacher in Atlanta, and I day traded for a hedge fund for a year.
Wait, you just became a 4th grade teacher?
Well, so Teach for America is a program where they specifically it's a program where it's a 2-year commitment to go teach in like the most dire circumstances.
Wow.
And it's kind of the thing they try to find like young, energetic people looking to give back and look to teach in these schools that need the most help. And like in theory, it's a good idea. I think their heart is in the right place, but really what you're doing is taking the least experienced teachers and putting them in the most difficult situations. So it's actually not great for the kids or the teachers.
Like what? Like how did that go down?
I mean, I was in the hood of Atlanta and I cared deeply about the kids, but I'm a first-year teacher who's never taught before. I had 2 4th graders who couldn't read. It's like they needed someone much better than me as a teacher. And like I was great for the kids on an emotional level. Mm-hmm. I was great for some of the kids on an academic level. Like I really tried hard and I got some of them up to grade level, but like there are certain problems that are well above an inexperienced teacher's ability to get these kids back to where they need to be, let alone if a veteran teacher could do it. So it's just you're taking the least equipped teachers and putting them in the schools that need the most help.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's how I just like became a 4th grade teacher as I applied to this program.
Yeah, but that's kind of amazing. That's really I'm sure it was like emotionally difficult for you as well, aside from everything else.
Yeah.
But they probably adored you.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is I loved my kids. I hated teaching. If you like, and I don't mean that to say like I came in every day angry. Like I was a very good and committed teacher while I did it. But once I was done, I was like, oh yeah, teaching is not for me because it is the most difficult.
What did you teach? Was it math, English?
So that's the other thing is like sometimes there are teachers who just teach math and they get a rotation of 4th graders or whatever grade they're teaching all day, and you only have to lesson plan one lesson plan. I had just 4th grade, the same students, and I had to teach every subject. So I had like the hardest version of teaching, which is having to make 7 or 8 lesson plans a day for 2 or 3 different learning levels. You have your beginner, your intermediate, your advanced. So it was insane.
Okay, wait, can we do something? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but can we do like an Are You Smarter Than a 4th Grader?
Oh, God.
Can you give me like 3 questions that maybe you would ask a 4th grade class? To see, because I'll tell you what, I help my niece with her homework.
Sure.
She's in 2nd grade. Fuck her.
Sure.
And fuck the teacher.
I'll tell you what.
It's hard.
I'm not going to do it right now. What I'll do is I'll plug one of my reels. I have a joke that went viral where I was talking about a 4th grade English lesson of naming the 4 sentence types.
Okay, I'll throw it in. Okay.
So you can post
because
it
it's
afterwards.
hard.
Yeah. Most adults cannot name the 4 sentence types that I was having to teach these children, some of whom weren't even close to reading on grade level. So yeah, it's difficult.
What is it? Does it say more about us as America or like shit?
Oh yeah, America's fucked. It's bad. And I was teaching before cell phones became what they are. I honestly cannot even imagine what it's like being a teacher at any age in today's schools with cell phones and social media. My heart goes out to everyone teaching. It is without question the hardest job.
Yeah. I bet teachers are obsessed with you, though. They're like, thank you for giving us a voice. It's so fucking hard.
I mean, sure. What's interesting is some of the kids that I taught now are like adults. So some
No way!
some of them have found me on social media, like followed me on Instagram, and I'm like, fuck, you probably thought I was way different than what you realize I am now.
Okay, do they say anything? Do they DM you? Are they like, hey,
No,
Mr.
I mean, in general,
Gardenswartz?
they've all been like, this is crazy, Mr. G, oh shit. But like, I mean, I'm not like talking shit about, my first album has a lot of material about me being a teacher as well. So it's like, you can hear that part of my life in the first album, and the kids are never the butt of the joke.
No,
it's
of
like
course.
the situation. So I'm not, but yeah, it's been interesting.
That's so funny. All right, so you do Teach for America, 24 years old.
And very quickly realized wasn't for me. And then I went to day trade for a hedge fund for a year. And that was another random situation where they specifically like people without without a background in finance, because they wanted to teach you their mold of trading. So it's like you don't come in with your preconceived notions, but they looked for smart people, competitive people, and they liked former athletes, because athletes are used to making quick decisions under pressure. And that's a lot of day trading. And so I had a friend of mine who I went to college with that was a baseball player in college. He was doing very well at the fund, and they basically told him, like, if you ever have any friends that you think might be a good fit. So he brought me in. I tried that out for a year, and I loved it, but also the gambling addict in me. It's like, if you're a compulsive gambler, you probably shouldn't be a day trader, because it's like all day you're just going to essentially turn into gambling. It's like if you make money, you go home thinking about how much more money you should have made. If you lost money, all you think about is the money you lost and want to go get it back as soon as the market opens.
Honestly,
the next day.
I might be a compulsive gambler. When I make a lot of money, I'm like, bitch, how do I do more? And then when I lose it, I'm like, everyone's dead.
Yeah. So that was a job where I was like, I like this a lot, but also probably not that healthy for me. And also, as luck would have it, this was like 08, 09 during the crash of the market, where I was being trained to trade a market by people who had never seen a market like that. So I was like being trained by people who were expert traders, but also were in new territory on their own. Like the rules to the game were changing in real time as they're trying to teach me the old tricks that used to work. So it's like a very odd situation to be in.
Yeah. So what happened? You were just like, all right, I'm over it. Like, what got you back into? And also, by the way, starting comedy in the Atlanta scene. I mean, that's like starting as a singer in the Atlanta scene. That's I mean, it's where you want to start.
Atlanta is a great scene to start in, because it's like you have New York, LA, and to some degree Chicago. Those are like the higher tiers of comedy cities, and then you have the second tier cities, which are, there's enough good comedians to like be influenced by your peers in a good way and push you. And there's smart enough comedy audiences. And Atlanta is like on the upper echelon of that second tier city, where you can absolutely develop and be a good working professional comedian in Atlanta and like develop your chops before you try to go chase fame in LA or New York.
Yeah, I love that. When you did the audiences, did you feel like they were predominantly black? Like, was there that aspect as well?
Part of what was great about Atlanta is I was one of the few comedians in the city that did both sides. Like, there's absolutely a white scene in Atlanta, there's absolutely a black scene, and then there's a few comedians who work both. And if you can learn to work both rooms, you'll just be a much more prepared and better comedian in general. And so I came up in the black and white clubs, but I definitely did a lot of all black shows, and it was an amazing experience, an amazing learning experience. Black crowds, when you're doing well, there's no one better, and when you're doing poorly, there's no one worse. And it's a great lesson to learn early on.
I will never forget, there was a comedy club in the Hollywood Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Oh, was it
Inside Jokes?
Was it? Oh, Inside. Okay.
And I went on stage, and I like had this really good material. I thought it was gonna be so great. It was an all black audience, and I fucking bombed, dude. And there was no feeling.
So brutal.
I was like, I can't fucking ever do it again.
What is cool though is like bombing sucks regardless. But once you bomb for a black crowd, bombing for a white crowd,
by nothing.
Like,
we're like, whatever.
Fuck?
I didn't like you either.
Yeah, it's like, fuck all you. You're lame. No one cares.
Wait, have you had a pretty bad bombing experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing comedy for almost 20 years. I'm proud of the fact that I don't bomb a lot. You'll meet these comedians who are like, oh, for the first few years you just bomb. And that wasn't my experience. I did pretty well from the start.
Yeah.
But of course I've had bad bombs, and it's been brutal.
It's brutal.
I mean, Uptown Comedy Corner was the black comedy club in Atlanta that was notorious for like, you'll get booed off stage. And I got booed off stage at Uptown. Absolutely. And the other thing that was great about Atlanta is not only is there a black scene, but there's different kinds of black scenes. So it's like a lot of white people are just non-black people assume the black community is a monolith, where it's like, oh, a black crowd is a black crowd. It's like there are very different kinds of black crowds. So I remember one time I went to Uptown and I did great on a show, and there was a radio host there, Griffey 3000, who saw me and he's like, oh, I have a room off Old National, you gotta come. And so I went that night, did the exact same set that had just killed with a black crowd at Uptown, got booed off stage at Griffey's room.
Damn.
And so it's like, that's what's great about comedy. The crowds are always dynamic. What works one night might not work the next night, and for different reasons. But you always have to stay on your toes and kind of feel the vibe of the room in real time.
Yeah. I just like when we talk about comedians bombing, not because to like highlight it, but it's just such an important part of life in general, like making mistakes, fucking up, doing it.
But so that's one thing that's helped me in comedy, going back to like the whole trauma aspect of it all, is like between having my mom die when I was younger, or learning to day trade during a crash and experiencing the nerves of like in real time losing a bunch of money over crazy stuff. It's like all these things that teach you to kind of just like be steady as opposed to the highs and lows. So it's like even when I'm bombing, compared to some of the other shit that's happened to me in my life, or some of the shit that I've had to deal with and learn to control my emotions through that, I can stay even keeled through the bomb. Or like if I absolutely crush, I'm not like shaking with the high of comedy for the next 5 hours and need to go get drunk to bring myself down. It's just kind of like I've learned to be very even keel through the highs and lows of life, on and off stage.
What does it feel like to be emotionally regulated? I have no idea what that feels like.
I mean, listen,
Functional? That's what it sounds like.
I still, I'm not a perfect person. I still have my moments, but in general, compared to a lot of comedians that I interact with or talk to, I definitely feel a little bit more emotionally regulated.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like it, because I think you're putting yourself out there in such a vulnerable position. But like you said, dealing with the death of your mother so early on, and then leaving the comedy scene for 2 years, what was the catalyst that brought you back and then began?
Okay, so as I mentioned, when I like stopped playing basketball in college, I kind of returned to writing. And one of my aunts, my dad is one of 6, so I have a lot of aunts and uncles, and one of my aunts is a writer, and I basically asked for her advice, and she was like, just start writing, any kind of writing you can do, it's all experience. So I started writing for the school paper. So my senior year, I also got an internship at Creative Loafing, which is the alt weekly in Atlanta. It's like the Village Voice equivalent in New York.
Yeah.
And I started covering comedy for Atlanta's alt weekly. And so when I stopped teaching and I was figuring out what I was going to do next, that summer was the first Laughing Skull Comedy Festival, which was a comedy festival in Atlanta. And I went and saw some of my friends that I used to open mic with that I hadn't talked to or seen in 2 years, like crushing in front of this new comedy festival with like a brand new Atlanta audience, where there was kind of this comedy boom in Atlanta happening. And I got that bug again. I saw like these guys that I used to be friends with that we were open mic and like doing great on like this official comedy stage in front of judges. And it made me just kind of realize, like, over the last 2 years, I had a lot of life experience that I could write about that would probably be funny jokes. And so like, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, I started hitting mics again and started doing shows again. And at that point, it was like, all right, I tried it and I went away. If I'm going to go back into comedy now, I'm going to take it seriously. Like if comedy is what I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of how it happened.
That's so exciting. I love that feeling when you see somebody or you get the bug again. You're like, fuck, I got to do it this time. I mean, and congratulations on that. Like, you kind of lived your life and then it brought you right back to comedy, which is amazing. Yeah. And now you're 4 albums in, 2 beautiful children, 1 and 3. Is that the ages now?
Yeah. Good job. You're a good listener.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have Esther, which is great. We talk a lot about having to be very resilient in comedy, because I think that unlike any other thing, I mean, I think entertainers have to be resilient in general. Having my background first in singing, like no one wants to fuck up a note, and then you do it, you're like, well, fine, I'm gonna. But I think with comedy, the best comics really, I got this advice one time from a comic, and he said, the more personal you can make it, the more it is you and your own voice, and no one can take that from you. And I always loved that advice, but it also means really having to be open, vulnerable, putting your shit out there, even if it's in the funniest way. And that can feel intimidating and overwhelming. And you have to be very resilient to continue to do it every single night. And you were talking about some big shit. Do you talk about the death of your mother? Did you ever put that in your...
On the first album, it's on there, yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, I reached the same conclusion with my comedy where a large part of the reason my comedy is so personal and I'm pretty much just talking about myself is specifically so I'm not a comic talking about the same stuff 3 comics before me on the show talked about, because early on you see that happening. It's like, oh, I've got a joke about masturbation. I've got a joke about dating. And then it's like all of a sudden, if I just talk about myself, there's no way anyone else is going to be close to what my set is. So, and then through that, you find your voice and you become comfortable and that becomes the comedy that you do. But you're right that like, if they like it, then they like you. But if they reject it, then it is a bit more of a personal rejection. It's like, oh, you actually don't like me or what I'm talking about because I'm telling you about myself.
Right.
So it's definitely a more vulnerable approach, but I think it's more rewarding.
Yeah, I was going to say, I always ask, putting yourself out there and doing all of that, it is vulnerable. But what is your worth it moment?
Like what made comedy worth it?
Yeah, like what's made it worth it every time you've got knocked down or every time the situations have happened? Like what is it that keeps you going back for more?
I don't know that there's one definitive answer,
reasons.
but at the purest form, it is the joy of laughter, that immediate gratification of having an idea that you came up with and seeing it relate in an entire audience of strangers who don't know each other that might be different races, ages, sexual orientations, all relating to one idea or thought that you had and all sharing in the joy of laughter. It is like a high and a drug that you're going to forever chase, because the truth is, I've been fortunate enough. I wrote for a television show. I've made a career out of things outside of comedy that comedy got me to. But like there was a point where I could have stopped doing stand-up and still gone on with, but like I'll always come back to stand-up because of that rush of the live crowd appreciating a joke in real time. And I think that's just, it's always worth it in that regard. It's like, that's something you can't bottle up and sell. It's something you can't emulate. It's something that no one else can understand unless you've been a comedian on that stage. And it's not even, performers are performers, and I respect performances and arts of any craft. Like you said, singing, I can't sing for shit, and if there's one thing I wish I could do, it'd be singing.
I don't know. Give it a try. Let's see.
No. I assure you, I cannot sing.
Esther, can you sing or not?
Verify.
Hello? Can you sing or not?
She will verify. But like to be a comedian, it's just you and a microphone. There is no more isolating artistic feeling in the world. There's nothing to hide behind. And when it works, there's nothing like the high of it working.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It really is the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you're married to a comedian, when you guys fight, do you fight in jokes? Or are you guys like, oh, you guys vibing?
Nah, we actually... We don't fight a lot, like which is great. But
get Esther on the phone. What's happening?
I promise she'll tell you. No, we both grew up in screamy households, and we I think part of the reason we became comedians is because we were the ones who were like trying to ease the tension with a joke. Haha, I'm the youngest kid. Everyone look at me sing and dance. Let's all laugh and be okay. So like she and I, neither of us like fighting. Neither of us like yelling. We have 2 young kids. Of course we fight, but it's never like a knockdown drag out that lasts overnight. Like we never go to bed angry, and not on the cheesy like, hey, never go to bed angry. We just like, we solve our shit in real time and go about our days. But when we fight, we don't joke with each other in the moment. But there are times when like a fight will lead to a joke, or sometimes we'll fight about who gets the joke. Like if we have a shared experience of something that we know is going to be funny or going to turn into a joke, we'll argue over like who gets to be the one to put it in their act.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something because I love this. You both grew up wanting to like lighten the tension.
For sure.
So that's where you used your humor.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you realized you could make people laugh and lighten up a situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously looking back with like adult hindsight, we realize in analyzing childhoods, I was very much the one in the household trying to relieve the tension of fighting and arguing with jokes. That's absolutely like the origin story of me becoming a comedian. But the first time in real time that I realized like the power of make a crowd laugh was actually my bar mitzvah speech, because I had jokes in my speech. And
Did you write your bar mitzvah speech?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Don't say it like that. Sometimes people don't.
No, what, you think I had a fucking ghostwriter for my bar mitzvah?
He would never. Noah would never have a ghostwriter for his bar mitzvah.
Never.
Loser.
Noah Gardenswartz was all authentic. And so I had a few jokes.
Shalom.
I had a few jokes in my bar mitzvah speech that all hit. And it was like the rush of 200-300, and Jews too. Jews are a tough comedic audience. So like when you make a room full of Jews laugh, it was like, oh, that felt good. I like that. And I again, in the moment, I didn't realize, like at 13, I wasn't like, this is what I'm going to do. But looking back, the first time I felt the power of a joke hitting was absolutely my bar mitzvah speech.
Okay, I'm sorry. I love that you were like performing. Do you remember like some of the jokes that you said in your bar mitzvah speech?
No, I know I took
Noah,
no.
come on.
I took a dig at each of my sisters. I don't remember what it was, and then I remember like they throw candy after the speech, is like the mazel tov after you read the Torah and give your speech. And I had a baseball glove hidden under the bima, and so like when people started to throw candy, I pulled out the glove and started catching candy. So I guess I was a prop comic, which is awful to admit. But yeah, so it was like I was killing up there. I like hit him with a few hard jokes, and then pulled out the baseball glove. I was riding high.
Are you kidding me? The day you turned into a man, you were a comedian.
Exactly. There
yes.
you go.
I love that. I love that that's where the start is. I know. I feel like for me, I knew that I could be fun. I didn't know if I was going to be a comedian, but I knew that I received love in a household that didn't have a lot through laughter. Like that was how I was able to sort of feel like love in my household. So I would do anything for a laugh. It didn't matter what it was, physical, emotion, anything.
Yeah.
I would just be the butt of the joke. I didn't care. But
I find that to be a pretty common thread with comics.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it ends up being the most beneficial thing for us. Like, had we had normal, or if I had a normal childhood, I'd have been a loser.
Yeah.
An unfunny loser.
I'm absolutely glad.
kidding.
I saw something online where it was like an ex-CIA, like one of the highest end spies, who was basically talking about like what's one of the first personality traits that the CIA will look for like what makes an incredible high level person at that position. And they said it's one of the like most telling things for success in that field is the right level of trauma, where like you want someone who wasn't traumatized so badly that they're going to have demons there forever chasing that could lead to addiction or erratic behavior, but you want someone who's had enough trauma that they have a little chip on their shoulder or something they're always trying to move on from or prove past, because it leads to like high level of achievement. And I feel like in comedy, it's probably a higher threshold for where that trauma is, but like in comedy, there is that sweet spot of trauma that can lead to success, where like there's some awful trauma that might lead to great comedy, but then that person is kind of a train wreck off stage as well. And that's where you get a lot of the stories that don't end well off stage for comedians. But like comedians who have experienced enough trauma in their lives to have something to force them to be funny or joke about, but not so traumatic that like they can't live a functional life after that. I think there's a sweet spot of trauma in probably all professions.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about that. But if you think about it, it does make you more relatable as a human being as well. More empathetic.
Of course.
More understanding, which is nice.
Yes.
Now that you're a parent and you're parenting, do you parent differently than your parents?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I parent similar in that I'm also not sheltering my kid. Like Esther and I are very hands-on, but we're also very, very purposeful in raising independent children. So like we don't baby our kids. We nurture our kids. We love and support our kids. We're always there for them, and we have a great relationship with them. But like I let my 3-year-old do his thing. We're letting the 1-year-old do, like my parents let me learn through trial and error, and I'm hoping to do the same with them. But we are definitely much more patient, less yelling, more communicating, more sensitivity. But I think that's just generational. Like boomer parents were just different than millennial parents.
They were just beating our ass. And we're like, I guess we want to hit our kids this
it was
generation.
Just like our generation was very much either like get screamed at with no explanation, and the answer is because I'm your parent, because I'm your mother, or like a father who in some cases wasn't around because they were working, because like the 90s father was like, hey, if I'm not around but I'm supporting the family because I'm working so hard, that's what a man's job is. And our generation, I feel like, for the most part, men have become much more equal partners in raising the children. And I feel like millennial parents in general are a little bit more gentler in their approach, which has benefits and drawbacks, but we are certainly gentler with our kids than our parents were with us.
Yeah. Are you raising them like in a religious household too? Have you found that balance?
Yeah, I mean, we're raising them in like an active Jewish household, but also not as religious as either of us grew up. And like I am so grateful for the way I was raised. I'm grateful for the religious upbringing I had, but there were certain things that I definitely grew up resenting, that I was forced to do, or rules that I was forced to follow that I never cared for. And the rules I resented, I'm not forcing my children to do.
Yeah.
So
I think that's any religion though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always, there's rules that you're like, this doesn't fucking
yeah,
make
I don't
sense.
think it's
hate
unique
it.
to Judaism. I think it's just like you said, across the board for religious upbringing, where it's like, I'm very glad I have that. And a lot of it I'm carrying forward and passing on to my children. But the stuff that wasn't working for me, I'm not forcing my children to do it and just describing like, well, it is the tradition, so I guess I had to do it, so they have to do it. It's like, no,
Right.
it didn't work for me, so I'm not going to make it my kids do it.
Yeah, I love that. So you're living in Vegas now. Where can
Yes.
people see you? Are you touring? What's the vibe?
I used to tour so much, and then with the kids,
It's so
like,
hard.
It's impossible to be on the road.
But I also feel like you don't necessarily need to tour thanks to the pandemic, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's just so much access now to internet. You recently started doing Reels. Congratulations.
Yes, but and check them out. But the overwhelming majority of my reels are from past performances. Like I'm not putting out new jokes on reels because I want to keep those for whatever the next special will be. So like I don't like putting new stuff out in real time because I want to accumulate enough for it to be like an hour for people to see for the first time when they see it.
Yeah, I went to see Adam Ray a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's so funny, but he was doing a set and someone pulled out their phone. And like people know you can't really pull out your
Right.
phone. And he literally stopped. I mean, he was so professional about it,
And he's like,
so
"Please stop
great.
filming me."
But he was like, yo, don't. And then stopped the entire joke.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, have you had that moment where you're like, yo, I'm trying to like save this for a fucking special?
I mean, I don't care enough. Like I've seen people recording me in the moment, and I'm always like, I mean, that person probably has 117 people who follow him. Like it's not gonna ruin my special debut if they record it. But like, yeah, I might like gently ask them to put their phone away. I wouldn't stop the show. But Adam also has a lot more.
I mean, he did it really
of a-
gently. Like
No,
he
no,
did it
but
in
I'm
a-
saying he has a much bigger social media presence where like the name Adam Ray might get passed around more than like a Noah G comedy clip might.
I don't
but
know. If you were to post about your bar mitzvah speech,
That's
that
true.
might go fucking
if
viral.
I can find the video of
Do
it,
you have the video? Can you find the video?
maybe
That
I'll
would
try.
be an IG reel.
But so where am I performing? I mean, Vegas has been very good to me in performing around town. I'm at the Cellar, I'm at Kimmel's, I'm at Brad Garrett's. Like I never know exactly when I'm gonna get the week here or there, but those are the three places locally that I performed at a lot. And then you know, when I get road dates going into 2024, I'll update them on my website, Noah G Comedy, which is the same on Instagram. So like if I have road dates coming up, that's where they'll be able to find them. But right now I'm just put out the special, so I'm kind of retooling
Yeah.
for the next hour, and then we'll get back out on the road at some point.
You got to get ready for Hanukkah. You got to get ready for everything.
We're throwing a party.
Yeah, are you gonna throw a party? So
You
what
know,
does it
you're
look like?
welcome to come.
Hey, I
Doing the
might
party like that,
come.
please do. We'd
Okay, I'm
love
gonna
to
bring
have
a
you.
catch. I'm gonna bring a mitt. I'm
Great.
just get ready
There
for
you go.
anything that
Yeah, I'll throw a
happens.
Jada at you.
What do you do? What are some of your traditions for the holidays, especially with like little babies
Well, with the kids,
now?
yeah, my wife like really wants to make Hanukkah the holiday that they feel good about. So obviously we've got dreidels, we'll make latkes, we'll light the menorah, and then we'll give them gifts.
That's so cute. Is it crazy to have such little babies now and experiencing the holidays started through their eyes?
Everything about fuck holidays, just every day.
Everything.
It's like everything is crazy. Every single day is something new that surprises us. Yeah.
That's so cute. That's so cute. Well, good. We'll have a good holiday season with
Thank
your
you.
kids and Esther, who we're going to have on
Yeah, and
the
I'll
podcast
text
as well,
you after
please.
this. Come to the party.
Yeah, we would love to. Can
please.
I bring my fiance? She's
Of course.
Armenian, but
Yes.
but she understands the Jews.
She can come.
She gets it.
Of course. She's
or she'll
welcome.
stay outside. It doesn't matter.
No, bring her in. We'll give her a latke.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you
We
for having me.
appreciate it so much. Please come on. I know that you're local now. Please come on anytime you want. And also
Yeah, there's
keep
trauma
us...
we didn't even get into, so we can do a sequel.
There's
episode.
more?
Of course.
Give me a hint. Give me a hint.
No.
Oh, you're gonna just tease it until we're ready for
Yeah,
it.
there you
Okay,
go.
good. Well,
I want it
2024 is
I
looking
want it to
good.
be juicy for episode 2.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about your father.
Oh, yeah. Well, my dad's great, but
Okay, so the trauma
It's
isn't with
non-family
him.
trauma. Non-family trauma.
Just fucking life.
Just life.
Just life hitting you. Okay, good. Well, we'll have you back on because I know you got to do fatherhood duties today. We can't go over the time.
Yes.
You got to go dad it now.
Got to go pick up daycare.
No fucking around.
Thank you.
But thank you. Please come back on. We'll promote
this was great.
everything you do.
I appreciate it.
So nice to meet you, Noah G.
You too.
So Funny It Hurts is brought to you by Pacific West Injury Law. Got into an accident? Contact Pacific West Injury Law. Also, there's nothing better for your mental health than a great workout. And our episode is brought to you by Fit Club, the only place to be. It's so funny, it hurts.